Oh yeah, man. I am I'm excited about this one. This topic here, this shit's juicy. I'm not gonna lie to you. I think that this was like one I was hoping everyone would vote for. When I first announced that I wanted to do a podcast, I went into my broadcast channel on Instagram. And it's got 1,800 people, so it's a good survey. And I'm like, yo, first podcast episode, like I need to know what everybody's hoping for. And these were the votes. The four options were battling outsiders' traditions and opinions regarding new additions to the family. So like I spoke about it in the first episode of this podcast, just in like the intro, but in Hispanic households, it's common that you shave your baby's head, like pretty early on because the hair grows back thicker, whatever they pass on. Say you don't want to do that. Like there's reprimand, there's repercussion, there's judgment from your family. How you battle that. Parent guilt, no one tells you about how often you're going to have parent guilt. I mean, it's like even recording this podcast right now, Laguna is in the living room with Rachel, and I'm like, I'm a fucking awful dad. Like she works so much harder than me, and it's like parent guilt for both of them. Like I feel partner guilt and parent guilt. So I thought that one was pretty interesting. 3 qualities of a good newborn dad. So I was going to highlight, what it takes, and none of it was going to be, can you change a diaper? All of it was going to be mental stuff. And then battling your ego. It's so funny because battling your ego would probably be my favorite thing to talk about, but it got the least amount of votes. And I'm like, I just realized, like, I feel like everyone that didn't vote for it is battling their ego and they don't know they are, which that's judgment. That's probably me having ego. But what won was battling outsiders' traditions and opinions regarding my new addition to the family. And I kind of hope that one won, or battling my ego, because they're just like both so fun to talk about. And I think that I have a lot to say on the topic. And so, yeah, this is what this episode's about, man. It's battling those traditions. And I think one thing that was like interesting for me when I was going to have a baby is I have such a young mom myself. My mom had me when she was 18, I guess when she was 19 years old. And so now my mom's 45 and I'm 25. So like there's a point where our birthdays line up where we're about 20 years apart. But it was interesting because I had never seen my mom in the light where like she was trying to give me advice outside of things that are like solely my own. And so it felt weird because like if my mom's giving me advice like, yo, save your money for a car, you're kind of like, okay, yeah, like that's a great idea. Like we could both agree me with a car is awesome. But the moment that they start to introduce things like, hey, don't go outside, you shouldn't be taking your baby outside for 30 days. Like that was one thing my mom was pretty adamant about. We're Filipino, like a segment, but my mom's father, his father came from the Philippines. And so there were, although my mom being third generation, there were some things that probably got passed down. And it was like an interesting thing to hear her say like, oh, stay in. And now she's not giving me advice on things that Ricky should do that benefit Ricky. And like, we don't know if we can all agree on it. Like, hey, stay inside, you're sick. But now she's giving me advice on another human that's not here yet. And quite honestly, you feel this weird like ownership where it's almost unbelievable that somebody would share their opinion about something that's completely 100% yours. And not every parent feels this way. I think that, some, especially fathers probably just like, I don't know if that's me being sexist, but it's reality, probably feel like the mother has most of the weight or most of the control in the situation. And I took the role of like, no, I have just as much say so, and that's good. That's how it should be, and that's worked out for us. It's created no problems. But that made me wonder, like, as you give me this advice about what I should and shouldn't do, like, it's not really this is mine. This is completely mine. It's hard to describe. You almost feel a little bit of sole ownership over this thing, and if someone gives you advice on it, it sometimes, if you're not emotionally regulating, you're not emotionally intelligent, it can feel like an immediate attack. Like, oh, I have to do that because that's your, and you start to look from like an omnipresent perspective of like, well, what'd you do with me? What did this, and it's like so much ego in that moment. And here I go talking about ego, but ego really is the devil. And it's like, you're trying to battle what you think you should do with your baby, and you have ultimate control. And then you realize that people giving you advice, you want to critique it. And so, oh, don't go outside for 30 days. Well, if you did that with me, what about all the things bad that happened after that? Did that correlate? Like, was it really worth it then? And I love my mom, so I love you, Mom. Don't take any of that personally. I just mean that's kind of what goes through people's heads. And so I kind of want to set the tone of like, if you're about to have a baby, if you're pregnant and you're already starting to hear it, right? So you better shave that baby's head. Another one, you better put socks on that baby. So me and Rachel don't put socks on Laguna, not intentionally, but we never intentionally put socks on her, if that makes sense. So like if socks come into question, it's almost like we have to really be like, oh, should she be wearing socks? And we got to like think about it at that capacity. But standard, she's going to go no socks. We'll take her no socks to the grocery store, no socks here, no socks there. And really, because if you do some actual research, it's very tactile for them. And babies learn with their hands and their feet and their mouths and all of those things. And when they have covers on their feet, they're not really in the position to like understand what they're touching still. And so like when I have socks on, I might still try to grab, you know, a hairbrush off the ground or a hair tie off the ground with my little toes. But as a baby, they don't know what they're stepping on, and they're so tactile, them learning to crawl, them feeling the floor and things like that. So much sensory comes from their feet. And so I'm like, I'm not putting fucking socks on my baby. Once I found that out, I was like, I don't want to put socks on her. And so I'm starting to hear all this. You're starting to hear all this as you begin to get pregnant. I mean, especially as the months pass, you're talking 6, 7, 8, 9 months pregnant. You're like, oh my God, this baby's going to be here. And you're like ready to feel the bliss, but then you're also ready to be like, you're not allowed in the hospital room. And it's like this weird ownership, but your family is so keen, or people around you are so keen on you sharing that experience with them. It almost feels a little bit disingenuous. Like, how could you expect me to share this experience with you when I haven't experienced it yet? Does that make sense? And so I think that like as humans, one of the most powerful things we do in life is we share experiences. And so as you meet someone, especially as you start to date or fall in love, or maybe you do something amazing. Like I love to travel, and my mom's never been a big traveler because she had 3 kids by the time she was 23. And so when I got out of the Army and I got home, I took her to Nashville. That was like the first thing I did for Mother's Day. I'm like, you're coming with me. I'm paying for the hotel and the Airbnb, or I'm paying for the hotel and the flights. And I want you to see something that I love, that I've already experienced. I want you to come with me for something that I've already been through because I know it's amazing. Now, of course, you know the birth of your child is going to be amazing, and I'm not trying to compare a trip on fucking Broadway in Nashville to the birth of your child, although both are really amazing and fun. But what I am trying to say is that it's not the opportune time to bring someone into that moment and let them share opinion, let them gain experience with you when you haven't been through it yourself. So you're probably feeling a lot of internal battle if you're in the shoes of, my family is very opinionated. This is what they want to do with my baby. I have no desire for them to be doing that with my baby. I read this. I learned this. Wherever you're getting your information from, or maybe you're getting it nowhere at all and you're just taking it personal that they're sharing their opinion with you, which to a degree is fair. You got to learn to set boundaries. So this episode's literally going to be all about how you battle healthy with family, and kind of where it all ties back to. And so one thing I want to address immediately is like, this is something that me and Rachel notice a lot. It's like, when it comes to my family, we're very honest, forward, and what I'll call a feedback culture. We have a feedback culture. And so if I do something at my mom's house that she doesn't like, I'm disrespectful, I'm yelling, whatever it may be. I'd never disrespect my mother, but like it could be as small as I left my dishes in the sink. My mom will tell me, hey, I didn't like that you did that. Like, don't do that again. We have a feedback culture. And so this allows me to take it in stride. I'm so used to this constant feedback. Ricky picked that up. Hey, that's your mess. You got to get it. Hey, if you're going to leave your doggies here, that's fine, but you need this, right? So much open communication and feedback culture that when it came time to have my baby, I could be really open and honest with my mom. Hey, mom, I don't really want to do that. Or, nah, we're not feeling that. No, I'm going to do it this way. No, I'm not going to put socks on her. We are going to go for a walk because the sun will help her jaundice. Actually, we're not going to do the same vaccines that everybody's doing today. Like, that's a touchy subject, right? And so this feedback culture allows me to have a relationship with my family that's open, honest, sometimes can create animosity, but we square that up too, because it's hey, I noticed your vibe was off. Like, what's up? Like, you got a problem with what I said? Let's chop it up. Let's talk it out. And so if you haven't built that with your family, I hate to tell you got to go back eons, but you kind of got to go back to the beginning. I mean, once you find out you're pregnant, if this is something that you fear, you go back. So if you're listening to this podcast right now and you're, you're 3 months along and say you haven't told your family, but you know they're about to come with a lot of opinions, your ass better start today. Go tell your mom, hey, mom, I wanted to talk about that time when I was 11 and you spanked me. That shit bothered me. Whatever it is, right? But you want to build this culture of feedback so that by the time the baby's here, one thing we don't do is we don't allow Laguna screen time. And that's something real with my mom where I like, we were getting heated. I'm like, I'd walk in after she was watching her and I was at the gym and I'm like, yo, if you're going to play movies with her, I'll just go to the gym separate to Rachel. I'm so grateful to have childcare. But if like she's going to watch TV, you just got to cut the shit, bro. You do. You got to cut it. If you're not going to turn it off, that's fine. You'll see Laguna in the presence of me being around. And it sounds unfair. And it's like, oh my God, how could you do that to your mom? Well, what I couldn't do to my mom is tell her everything's kosher and actually behind closed door be like, oh, it's so it pisses me off so bad when she does it. No. You know what I mean? And so that's what I couldn't do to my mom. I couldn't have these behind the scenes feelings because I know our relationship is going to thrive when we're completely honest with each other. And me and Rachel talk about this a lot because with my family, it is that feedback culture. And with her family, it's not so much. And I won't weigh in on the topics with her family, but Rachel fears a lot of moments where she might call out something that would be a discrepancy with the family because she's like, we don't have this culture of feedback. And so it makes me nervous that we're not going to be good after it. And so it's kind of, I bring up those two houses because I realize that if you're early in the pregnancy journey right now, like I really recommend you go back and you start to build that feedback culture either today or if you know you're pregnant and it's coming up, like start before the baby gets here. I shouldn't say either today, but today, or say you already had the baby and you don't feel like it's that way, you got to start building it immediately, right? And that first one's always hard. A good example I could give you is sometimes we'll put Laguna in the gym daycare. And it's this gym here in Arizona. And it's the first time we take her, there's fucking screens everywhere. And I'm like, oh my God. And the real reason, the real motivator of Laguna not watching screen time is when she sees the screen, she goes zombie. So like she'll be, playing la-di-da, right? Say it's the back of the phone. You turn it, she goes. And if you're watching the video version, you can see the face that I make, but just complete zombie, wide eye. She's so focused in. And it makes you uncomfortable almost. Like if you're a caring parent, you're like, oh my God, that baby's like zoned into that screen. Like that must be really stimulating. And that's just how I feel. Maybe you see it and you're like, oh my God, she loves the screen so much. And like, if you feel that way, cool. I'm glad that your brain allows you to not feel any animosity for the screen. But for me, it does. And so this is something that I had to address early on with the Mountainside people, but it was tough, right? So I have the feedback culture with my family, and I used to manage a Starbucks. We build feedback culture there, but these Mountainside people, I don't know. It's my first time meeting them, and quite honestly, like this is everybody's biggest fear probably. What if they just tell you to fuck off? Like, what if you tell them something and they're just like, yeah, so we have the screen. Like, obviously there's TVs in here, so I mean, you can go. Like, especially when they don't need anything from you. Like, I'm not paying these people anything extra. It comes with the gym membership. So it's like, honestly, bro, just, you can fuck off and not leave her here. I mean, that's everybody's biggest fear, rejection, when you're trying to build that feedback culture. And so the first few times I literally couldn't say shit. I was mute. As bold as I am, as tough as I am, as ready for, interaction and honestly, as confrontational as I am, I was mute. I'm like, I shelled up. I'm like, oh shit, because I was so grateful in the moment. And you're probably feeling this exact same feeling with your family, right? You're so grateful that your mom got you a baby shower gift, that your dad wants to be involved in the name picking or whatever. That's another one, people judging you're the name you pick because of tradition or some shit. Whoops. Jesus, I feel you there. But all of these things that you're thinking of, and you're like, I don't want to come off like an asshole, when technically they don't need anything from me. I need something from them. Hey, mom, I need a baby shower gift. Hey, mom, I need help taking me to my appointment. And now you want to tell them, hey, I appreciate you being at my appointment, but you can't be in the room when I give birth. Like, these are things that create this wall. And so there's two ways to do it when you want to start to build that feedback culture. I'm going to give you some real actionable tips, because what I don't want you to do is be like, Ricky's podcast made a lot of sense to me, but I literally don't know what the fuck to do with any of the information he gave me. There's kind of two methods. One is to rip the Band-Aid off, right? And so this method for me is pretty straightforward and exactly what it sounds like. You're going to tell them immediately what you want to achieve, and then you're going to follow up with cushion. What you don't want to do is a compliment sandwich. And this is different. This is like when you take the top off the Oreo and it's just cream in one cookie. I love my fucking Oreos that way. But the compliment sandwich sucks. So, hey, I think you look really pretty today, but if you would have done your eyebrows better, I would have really liked to have you be my date to prom. But your hair looks really good, so I appreciate that. That's the compliment sandwich, right? Hey, your car has nice rims. The paint is shit, but the inside's really clean. Compliment sandwich. This rip the Band-Aid off is kind of like half of that Oreo, right? So the first thing you're going to do is that hard bite of cookie, and you're just going to say, look, Mom, we don't want to do screen time with Laguna. Like, I really don't want her watching the screen. It's just something I'm really passionate about. I can give you all the facts to back it if you want, but like, I just really don't. Now, this is when you give the soft part of the cookie, right? I'm so appreciative that you watch her. Obviously, like, me going to the gym is a blessing. So many young parents don't have that. And so, like, me dumping my kid off, like, I don't really expect you to just like absolutely raise her the same exact way I'm raising her. Like, that kind of takes away the purpose of individuality. I just ask that maybe this one thing we don't do. And I think there's a lot of solutions to that. There's a lot of fun toys that I can get her that still keep her absolutely entertained. And you know what, Mom, if you absolutely had to turn on the screen, Hey Bear is like the one thing we let her watch. And it not for longer than like 10 minutes. We really try to limit it. So I ripped the Band-Aid off, and I kind of told her, hey, this is exactly what I need from you. And then you can cushion it with a lot of love. And so that's a good method. I think more often than not, the ripping the Band-Aid off kind of scares us because we can't even take that first step. And so the next method is how I want you to feel at the end of this, right? And so one thing you can literally open the conversation, and it might sound weird, like, because I'm say you're talking to your mom, right? It might sound weird, or say I'm talking to a Mountainside girl, but you can literally open the conversation of what you want at the end of this, right? And so I might say, hey, at the end of this conversation, I want you to know I'm so fucking grateful that you watch Laguna when I need someone to watch Laguna. And I could never express to you what it's like to feel like I'm not raising this child by myself, because I feel like I'm barely getting by with all the stress that I have. So you let them know at the end of what I'm about to say, I want you to know I appreciate you and I love you. Because the God honest truth is you wouldn't be nervous for the feedback culture if you didn't care about this person at all. And so when you're battling these family traditions, you're going to have to tie it back to the fact that you do care about them and you want them to be around. You just don't maybe want to deal with this one portion of them. And so you could easily say at the end of this, blah, 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 blah. Like I just said, I want you to feel like I love you. I'm grateful for you. I'm so thankful. And immediately you piqued interest also. Like at the end of this, like, what the fuck is he about to tell me that, he hates me, or, he's going to name his daughter Firewood Johnson? And so whatever it may be, and then lead in with what you want to say, because it cushions it a little bit. This is like eating the Oreo the other way, right? It's the soft part first. And so at the end of this, I want you to know that I love you, and I'm grateful that you're willing to babysit Laguna whenever. I just feel like the one thing that we're separating on is the screen time. And like, I kind of made like some antics about it earlier. Like I would joke like, hey, we ain't letting her watch screen time, girl. You feel me? Like, we got to keep that screen away from her. But like, I want you to know I'm a little bit more serious than maybe I led on to believe. And I really, really care about this. So please, Mom, if you could find it, in your time or in your heart, if you are watching Laguna, I really don't want her watching the television. So it gives that person like the no, like if you even say something wrong next, at least they know where your heart's at. And so I came off pretty soft about that. But one thing people wanted to judge a lot was like Laguna's name. And I was not soft about that. I was fucking angry when people shared their opinion. But if it was someone I cared about, I might want to lead with, yo, at the end of this conversation, I want you to know that I value literally your input in almost everything in life. But right now, about my daughter's name, I got to be honest with you, I don't give a fuck. This is what I'm going to name my daughter. And as the more you share your opinion and the more you make it negative, truly, honestly, the more I just don't want to include you in anything. But and so you let them know, I do value you. I love you. It's just like, when you share your opinion about this shit, it just makes me want to get rid of you. Like, I don't want to have you in the conversation anymore. And so those two ways have been really, really pinnacle and helpful for me when I'm starting to build that culture with someone, the feedback culture with anyone. And I think another thing that I didn't put in those two ways, but something that is really powerful, is do things that generate insight. Do things that force people to ask questions. So like, sometimes I've heard this saying in church before. Not that I'm huge in church, but I don't know why I have to disclose that. Like, you feel like you have to tell people whether you're religious or not when you bring it up. But I've heard this before, like, be such a follower of Christ that people want to ask you, why the fuck do you act like that? And then you can point them in the direction of God, right? That, whatever. Cool. So that's like one subject, one aspect, you know, walk in like you fucking own the place. And when they find out you don't, they're going to ask you, where do you get that confidence from? Right. And then you could say, oh, I get that confidence because I got a trophy wife at home and, I make $1 million a month. And so whatever, do things that generate insight. So like one thing I might do if I want people to know, like, hey, screen time's not the business. This last time I went to Mountainside, right? I said to the girl, oh my God, I'm so glad this Mountainside has, I just released the gym that I go to. I was trying not to say it. I'm so glad that this gym has a little section for 0 to 1 years old with no screens in it. Because me and Rachel were just kind of weird about screens. Like, obviously they're there, and so it generated insight. She's like, oh, you don't want Laguna watching television? I'm like, no, we really try to keep all the stimulation away from her up until she's probably going to be like 2. And she's like, oh my God, I'm so glad you told me. We'll make sure we keep her in the area. So I did something that generated insight. Although it was more direct, you can do other things like, say you're on the couch with your baby, you want everyone to know you're not fucking with screen time. And so you imagine they're trying to look at the television and you're covering her eyes. And you're like, no. And just have your little private one-off conversation with your baby. And so when everyone's like, yo, like, why are you not letting her watch the TV? You just did something that generated insight. And so now you get to answer, oh, we're not letting her watch TV because a bunch of studies show that if you let your kids watch TV before they're 2 years old, their fucking eyes will fall out of their head. I don't know. You know what I mean? I'm not going to add my personal opinion here about the topic because my mom had 3 kids by the time she was 23 and she was a single mom. So she probably fucking fed us cartoons. Shout out, mom. But everyone's in a different situation. I'm blessed to be able to control the amount of TV my daughter watches because we have Rachel as a stay-at-home mom and I work 3 to 4 days a week. You know what I mean? So I'm absolutely blessed and I'm grateful. But you can do these things that generate insight with your family so that you can answer the question yourself so that it could be brought up a little bit more nonchalant. So when you say, oh, we're actually not allowing screen time because their foot will fall off if they watch TV before they're 2, your family can go, oh shit, I didn't know that. Like this is going to lead me to the next topic before we close out is, well, we watch TV. Well, we got all the vaccines, which I'm not disclosing our vaccine information. Laguna has been vaccinated at some capacity. And it's not something I'm going to talk about, but we got vaccinated. We ate fucking Fruit Loops and McDonald's every fucking day. And someone just said this to me. We've been doing this with kids for hundreds of years. No, I'm not right. Because I was talking about, I was saying Laguna shouldn't be standing all the time because she can't walk. Like, so it's bad. I don't know if her knees are going to develop bad and like the standy things. And I said, yeah, well, people were living in huts and fucking mud tents for hundreds of years. So why do you have a house with running water and sewage? And because you guys did some investigating, you found a better way to live and you adapted to the change. And so my generation, I'm 25. I don't know if I'm a millennial or Gen Z. I was born in 98, but because of this, like, we're raising questions that allow us to answer them to find out more. And so when your family battles you with that, well, you did it and you're fine. I actually always tell my mom when someone says, well, you did it and you're fine, I say, actually, I'm not fucking fine. Like, I've been to, I have these many, I'm not going to disclose everything that I've been through, but I've done some things that are questionable. And I'm like, shit, maybe it's because I was fucking watching Tom and Jerry every 25 minutes. I didn't mean that, Mom. I love you and I love Tom and Jerry. But the point is, it's like so much of the conversation can lean on, well, what'd you do? And was it good for you? Like, well, we're making changes. Generations are growing and changing. There was a time when people would watch someone be racist or sexist where people would walk into workplace and be like, you're a woman? God, I can't believe you got hired here. And shit like that was okay. But we figured out that that wasn't the answer. It was ignorant. It was arrogant. It was grotesque. And we made the necessary changes to have a better society. And so lean on that when they argue with you and you say, yo, I don't want to shave my baby's head low key. Well, it grows back thicker. Your hair did. Your hair grew back thicker. I don't know if it did. And honestly, I don't really think it fucking matters. And more of the question that I have is like, if I shave it when I'm 6 months old or 60 years old, wouldn't it always grow back thicker? But maybe since it's a girl, you're not going to shave a girl's head. I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, what is the right answer? We named Laguna. That got a lot of fucking questions. Well, Ricky, you have a totally normal name. You were named Ricky. Rachel, you have one of the most probably popular out there names ever. You were named Rachel. Why would you want to name your daughter after a beach? Well, ultimately, it's our choice. And these are the experiences that led me here to this decision. And you went through experiences that led you there to that decision. And so I think that you have to like get them to think inward, do things and ask questions that generate insight. Well, Mom, why'd you shave my head? Well, because the hair would grow back thicker. You're sure it did? Well, yeah, I remember it did. Do you know anyone that didn't shave their head? Oh, well, all your little, Caucasian friends at school, like not Hispanic families, pull up a picture of them. Their hair looks fine. Whatever it may be. And so do things that generate insight and bring an argument that's not so leaned on like, well, I don't know. Because once you do that, you're invalidating your own point, and people are going to like latch onto that and be like, you don't even know why you're doing it because you saw it on Instagram, but whatever their excuse is, and be like, I've actually just gathered enough knowledge and I have a good base that this is that and this is that. And so it's hard to completely know what you're going to battle as a parent. And I think the broader topic is like, how do you battle these outside traditions? And I think the absolute tip I can give you is you need to build a feedback culture with your family. And if you haven't started today, you have to start today. And I actually get a lot of DMs like, yo, my fucking mom won't even let me speak, yada, yada, yada. Like, there's got to come a time, son or daughter or whoever, where you sit down with your parents and you say, I'm about to have a fucking baby. So I am what I am. I'm a man. I'm a woman. I'm non-binary for all I give a fuck. Whatever it may be, but I am what I am. And I'm an adult now. And so I'm about to be in charge of making complete decisions for someone else. And you're going to allow me that space, or we're not going to be able to have a relationship at this capacity. And you got to start there. Otherwise, it's always going to come off like, oh, he's spoiled. I've seen tons of people stand up to their parents and are like, oh, what a spoiled brat, like blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, yo, I think people are so adapted to the idea that because you guys are blood, because you're family, you can't ever hold them accountable, or they can't ever be judged. Judge is such the wrong word. They can't ever be evaluated by you, and then you make an educated decision based on your evaluation. So like, hey, I evaluated, you're on some hater fucking energy, and I don't want that around my baby, so goodbye. It doesn't matter if it's mom, dad, brother, sister, aunt, uncle. It doesn't matter. You got to hold them accountable, and you got to create that culture of feedback, because if you don't, the time will come that you wish you did. I can promise you that. Imagine this, your daughter's 3, and she does something that someone doesn't like, and they spank her. And you don't, like, someone spanks my daughter, and I can give you real, honest proof. If you spank my daughter, I will come for you. Like, I will have you. I will own you. And so, like, all jokes aside, but like, really, like, you're fucked. How do you address that? And how do you address it without it not being new, right? So someone spanks your daughter, you have a hysterical breakdown. They've never seen this out of you. They don't even know that you have an opinion because you never built that feedback culture with your family. And so they're stunned. Or imagine you've shelled up for years and years and years and years and years. They spank your daughter and you shell up again because that's where you're comfortable. And you go home and you're like, oh my God, I'm the worst parent ever. How could I? And then imagine you start going over to mom's house less. And she's like, why do you never come over? Well, mom, because you let your sister fucking spank my daughter, whatever it may be. And so if you haven't built that yet, you need to build that. And if you need help building that, please DM me on Instagram. I can try to talk to you about more tips and tricks about how you can be honest with your family. But a lot of it takes fucking clear eyes, full heart. Can't lose, baby. You got to come at the situation being confident. And I'm going to say this and then I'll close, is that if you do not come at the situation truly believing it, and this will probably lead us into our next episode of values, but let me leave you with this. If you do not have values, then you need to get them, or you are not ready to raise a child, and you're definitely not ready to invite a community to raise a child. What I mean by that is, like, there's a value within me. That value is loyalty, right? Like, loyalty is one of the things that I value highly. And so if I trust you with something and you cross me, you got to go. You have to. You have crossed the line. You have hit below the belt. But that's because I truly fucking believe it. And when you're around someone that doesn't have values, it's really easy to notice. And so if I say, I don't want Laguna watching screen time, and that's because I value mindfulness, that's because I value literal spiritual and mental health, and that's more important than anything. Screen time is murdering your spiritual and your mental health, right? I value that. I value family time. I value honest connection with nature. If I didn't value those things, when someone asked me, why don't you want Laguna having screen time? I really don't fucking know. Well, my favorite influencer, the Ace family, they don't let them have screen time. So I just figure like I probably shouldn't let Laguna. Shut the fuck up. Shut up. That shit does not exist, man. You gotta know it. So hey, Ricky, why can't Laguna have that? All the reasons I just listed. And I believe in that shit. And I can promise you I believe in that shit because I'm out here doing it. I value those things. And so, hey, if you cross me, that crossed the boundary of loyalty. Like I'm cool off you, bro. That's my value. And so values are a lot different than like preference, right? And so my boy's borrowing my car right now. I prefer he doesn't crash that shit. Riker, please don't crash my car. If he did, I don't got to get rid of him. He didn't cross me. But if my boy Riker spanked my daughter, I have a value that you will not fucking touch my daughter in any capacity outside of loving. And so if you do, I had to take a second because imagining someone hit my daughter was just bananas. But if you were to do that, I will have you on a stick. And so that's a value you have to go. And so find your values before you do anything. And once you find your values, share your values, because don't forget that you're allowed to be a person too. Your mom's a person. She's got values. You're allowed to be a person too. And so battle these family traditions by doing a few things. 1, give values. 2, create the feedback culture. 3, use the method that works for you communication-wise. Do you want to rip the Band-Aid off and tell them what you need to tell them? Do you want to tell them how to feel at the end of the conversation? Or do you want to take a really passive route and just do things that generate insight and then allow yourself the space to talk about it? So find a route of communication that's as you build the feedback culture. And then ultimately, stand on business. That's really one of the last ones. Like, stand on business. Like, you have to. So I stopped bringing Laguna to all the other mountainsides because there were screens everywhere and I didn't like the people that were watching it. And no matter how bad I wanted to work out with Rachel, I had to cut the shit. Sorry, we got to work out separate. Sorry, someone else got it. And just like with my mom, if she said Laguna's going to keep getting screen time, looks like I had lost a babysitter, because I got to stand on business because it's a value. And so do those 4 things, create that culture in your life. And I really think that you'll find some success. And we'll do an episode about values probably next because I'm all amped up talking about it now, and how you find your own values in yourself. But know that more important than anything, I want you to finish out this podcast and leave better than you were before. And good luck with your family. And if there's anything that you feel like, fuck, Ricky, you didn't talk about this and I don't know how to navigate it, DM me and put in the top all caps, like, yo, better than before podcast question, because I get a lot of DMs. I got to read through them. But when I see that, I'm going to hop in and let's figure out a route for you to be able to raise your child in like the sanctity of your own home and not have to worry about what other people think. But anyway, this has been super fun. I'm super grateful. I'll see you guys in the next episode. Hopefully talking about values, or maybe we'll be bullshitting. I don't know. All right. I love you. Bye.